Hello and welcome. We just got finished reading The Old Woman and the Spring. The Old Woman of the Spring, sorry. It's a short story. It's about the Cheyenne. It's a little bit of a fairy tale retelling of their actual history. So it's it's the history recording of almost every single nation on Earth. You have a game, which I think is kind of fun. They just grab this little hoop, toss it, and they try and throw spears through it, and whoever could get the most spears through the hoop while it was moving wins. It's like cornhole, but advanced. And two men run into each other, and they're dressed the exact same, and they almost get into an argument, and then they figure out that they were told to dress the same way from the same person in the same place. So what they do is with the support of the community, they go back to the place, they take the clothes off, or they take their jackets off, and they go into the spring, and in the spring they find an old woman, and they essentially just ask her for advice. They said, hey, we are here to ask how we can get extra food, and so she lays out food for them, and then she explains how they can get more food. So they look, and they see all these different places with food going north, south, west, and east. And so I think it's interesting that if they wanted everything to be blessed, they were told to eat it in a certain way. And so that way, she said, first of all, males from the youngest to the oldest, with the exception of one orphan boy. So if there's an orphan boy, you just choose one, and he eats last. And second, all females from the oldest to the youngest, with the exception of one orphan girl, who eats last. And the jars, that's right, the food that they get, it comes in jars. And whenever they eat of the jars, it remains full. And so whenever they bring them out, they give them to everybody else. And they remain full until the orphans eat them. So once the orphans eat the food, then the jars become empty. And so they take the corn seeds and they plant them in marshes. So I guess corn apparently grows good in more of a bayou stuff going off of this. But what also happens is that buffalo also start reappearing, which is something they haven't had for a long time. So now they're able to hunt buffalo. And I think it's interesting that all of this was going on, and they traveled south to the swamplands where they planted, and corn grew up, but that all the corn was stolen. That's terrible. And that they went trying to find who stole the corn, and they ended up getting fights with other tribes. But it just seems to kind of be like a side note almost is what it feels like. It's just like, somebody stole our corn. Go get them. Ugh. Okay, that really wasn't worth it. Let's just go back and keep hunting buffalo. So then they just go back and hunted buffalo, and it says it was a long time before the Cheyenne planted any more corn. And that's it. So I think it's interesting that a lot of people discount myths for being true or factual or real because there's so much fantastical stuff inside of them. But to not use myths to try and learn something about the world at that time in like a proper historical way seems like you're looking at history too clinically. It's like a lot of these stories are written, one, to be stories, to be inspirational, but also to record things. The Iliad and the Odyssey are as much history books as they are myths and legends. They record myths and legends in a way that it essentially stays in your mind longer. It makes the real world into a proper epic with heroes and villains that you can root for. It maybe simplifies reality, but it still describes reality. And a lot of the events are true. Even Beowulf is being used to try and discover histories of northern people, which is kind of crazy. So I think in another sense, you could say that exact same thing for like the Bible, where it's like, hey, you may call it myths and fairy tales all the way through, but if you aren't using it to try and learn and discover more about the history of the ancient world, then you're just missing out on the history of the ancient world, because it documents it, and it documents it very carefully, just like other myths like these, which are being recorded, and a lot of them are saying, oh, this probably refers to this, this probably refers to this. And it's like, yeah, I think you're true. I think you're right in assuming that, because myths are the reality we live in, but told in a way that we'll remember. It's not clinical and cold like a lot of modern science and history. It's breathing, it's alive, and you won't forget it. You may not know how it connects to the real world at first, but with proper thinking and deduction, you can start to see why myth can be reality at the same time. So that's what I got out of the story. What did you get out of the story? Let me know down in the comments below, and I hope to see you in the next one, which is right here. Oh, and don't forget to comment, like, subscribe. That's important. Almost forgot about that, but you shouldn't. You should remember to do that. I hope to see you again. Bye-bye.